Hello. If you still use Cobol data files with your business applications, then this video is for you. My name is Scott Nielsen. I'm a Director of Product Management here at Micro Focus, and in this video, we'll explain some new tools available to modernize Cobol application data. Cobol data files can be really useful. They're both fast and convenient, but they do have some drawbacks. As companies look to modernize applications, access to business data held within Cobol data files can hold them back. Moving Cobol data into a relational database is often seen as the solution to these problems. Here are 3 reasons why application teams want to move Cobol data into relational databases. To improve application reporting. If a report needs to be customized or a new report is required, often a Cobol developer has to write a new program to do this. And if business data is stuck inside the application, real-time business analytics is that much harder to do. By using a database, IT teams can use industry-standard SQL tools to build new reports and perform business analytics without needing any changes to the Cobol applications or any knowledge of the Cobol data files. Availability and uptime. If a Cobol program crashes, Cobol data files can become corrupted. Restoring them can take hours or more, during which time the application is offline. Relational databases feature better quality of service and maintenance procedures, which overall means applications need to be taken offline less often. And finally, scalability. As applications take advantage of scalable compute resources on-premise and in the cloud, data files struggle to maintain performance across distributed architectures. Moving Cobol data into a database helps remove any shackles and is often an essential first step in achieving a scalable architecture. So if a database is the answer to all 3 of these needs, what's holding you back? Well, the simple truth is that Cobol applications are enormous and often running into many millions of lines of code and more. Updating all of that code to move from file I/O syntax to use embedded SQL can take years to complete. So if you haven't done it already by now, the chances are you won't get to it without some automated help. So let's look at what options you have to move Cobol data into a relational database. First off is the embedded SQL statements that you can insert into Cobol programs to allow you to read and write data and store it in a relational database. This approach offers you fine control over the data access, but of course you need to code this up yourself, and if you're moving from files to SQL, it's going to take you years to get that done. So next up is a method that presents an ODBC interface to your Cobol data files. The files essentially become an ODBC or JDBC data source. This is a smart approach if you want to maintain data in Cobol data files, but you want to improve the reporting potential for your application. By using this approach, anyone can pick up a standard SQL reporting tool and query the data without having to learn about Cobol data files. But while this approach can be effective, if you want to achieve the benefits of improved uptime and scalable architectures, you really need to get your data into a relational database. And to do that quickly, you can use tools which automatically convert file I/O statements in a Cobol program into calls to a database at runtime. This means you typically don't need to change code and the application can function as it was originally designed. Micro Focus has introduced a new option in this category called the Database File Handler, which supports the leading commercial and open source databases. It is designed to maximize application performance and update your application architecture to use a database as quickly as possible. To help you get a better handle on this approach, Ash Power from our customer support team is here to take you through a quick tour of getting the database file handler set up. Over to you, Ash.
In this video, I'll take you through a short demonstration of the Micro Focus Database File Handler, or MFDBFH for short. MFDBFH allows you to store your Cobol data files within a database of choice without changing your application. This means you get the benefits that come with using an established database, such as the robustness and failover capabilities, while still maintaining your existing application with no difference to the front-end user experience. To demonstrate what it can do, I will take you through a sample application that writes some account records to a file, but we will go through the process of creating the necessary configuration files to make it use the database, creating the data store to hold your Cobol files, running the actual application to write to this file that's now located in the database. We'll then create a view to see the data that's held within that file, and then I'll also show you how to download or upload a file to the database for modification or viewing. You can find a list of the current supported databases in our documentation. The first thing we need to do is create the MFDBFH configuration file. This file describes the database that it should connect to and how it should connect. For some types of databases, you can use direct connection strings, whereas others you can make use of things like the ODBC drivers or direct OCI connections in Oracle. In this particular example, we'll use the ODBC drivers, which I've already configured to point to my databases. You'll need an initial connection to the master database, and then a number of additional connections for the number of data stores that you would like. A data store in this case is a separate database which will hold your Cobol files. To create this configuration file, we will use the dbfh config command line. You can run each line individually, or you can bundle them into a text file and run all the commands in a single invocation. We'll do the latter here, so the following will show us adding the commands to a text file. We first create the initial server, which tells it the server name to use and the type of database we will be using. The server name can be anything you like, and it will be used anytime you reference the file location in later command line usage. Next, we configure the connection to the master database. All the options on these command lines are described in the documentation. If you don't want to store the password in plain text in the configuration file, then you can make use of the vault to store passwords securely. Lastly, we'll need to configure the data store itself. If you have multiple data stores, you'll need to run this multiple times and specify different DSNs each time. Now we execute dbfh config, pointing to the new text file containing our options. Now we need to actually create the data store, which will be a separate database. This can be done on the command line with the dbfh deploy utility, or you can use dbfh admin to generate the SQL scripts and run these. We're going to use dbfh admin command line to generate the SQL scripts. We can then execute these scripts to create the necessary databases to hold our files. You can use the dbfh deploy data list command to view the files and folders currently stored in the database. Currently, we can see there are no files in here. The next step will be amending our application to write the file to the database. We do this by modifying the file location to use the SQL URL above. We will now run the application and see that we've written some data to the file. So how do we actually view this? Now there are a few ways to do it. One would be to create a view using the dbfh view command line. Alternatively, you would be able to download the file and view it as if you would on disk. Again, we'll cover that shortly. To use the dbfh view command line, you will need a structure file so that MFDBFH knows the record layout of what it is about to create a view for. You could create one of these using the data file tool editor. Once you have your structure file, you simply need to run the following command. We can then access the database, and we can see that the new view has been created, and we can use that to browse the records that are on the file in the database. as mentioned, we can also use the DBFH deploy data extract command to view the contents of the file. This command that we're running will now let us download the file from the database and view it on disk.
Well, thanks Ash for that great demo and overview of the database file handler. And although this is new to Visual Cobol customers, actually DBFH is a tried and trusted component of the Micro Focus modernization toolset for mainframe customers and delivers scalable application architectures off the mainframe for enterprise organizations around the world. If you want to try it out for yourself, you can get a trial of our products in these major public cloud marketplaces,